Hey folks, welcome to episode 9 of the Stir the Pot channel with your host Navoja, here with a juicy episode for you today as well. Just a recap, guys, if you guys did not get to watch the last video, it was about why your dating life sucks, where we looked at the blind spots that most people don't consider when entering into a relationship or, trying to sustain a relationship. Of course, these blind spots were detailed in that video. You can go back and check it out. And of course, it makes the segue into our topic for today. I did promise from the last video I'll be looking at the whole relationship contract thing called marriage. Of course, we're going to look at the blind spots in marriage as well, mainly focusing on why they're not working, especially that whole concept of divorce. I mean, divorce is the final, separation of the marriage or the dissolution of the marriage, but we all have a bunch of people that are also married unhappily, so to speak, unhappily. Or, the marriage is not serving them. And today we'll be looking at around 4 of those blind spots when it comes on to marriage as to why it's not a success, and of course why your marriage sucks as well, just as how we look at how dating sucks. Of course, like, subscribe, share. I won't get into much of that. Of course, our community is growing. Guys, we're here to add value by looking at those life's blind spots that we're not taught about. Our culture has just forgotten about it or ignore it or just basically hidden from us from the last couple of decades, way back in the time, all of that stuff. So with no further ado, we're going to jump right into it. So I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day, and I suppose the topic of marriage came up. And then I was asking him, what do you think the purpose of marriage is? What do you think it is about? I remember watching a podcast, and there was a question that the guy says people really should ask. And the question goes like this: what is the problem to which marriage is the solution? And by the way, I'm not against marriage, just making that clear. I'm not a dating and relationships coach. I'm not an expert in any of the fields that we discuss on this podcast. Of course, we discuss the fields about money management. We talk about solid mindsets, relationships. And so I'm not an expert at those things, but I keep seeing people wishing they had the results I have when it comes on to these 3 things: the mindset, the money management, and of course, solid relationships and stuff like that, So, as I said, I was, watching the podcast, and he says, hey, what is the problem to which marriage is the solution? Most people talk about marriage. They want to do this. They want to have this great marriage, this awesome connection with somebody and all of that. And I think that's a good question to for us to ask. I won't delve into that side of things. That was just his approach to having people open their minds to look in the whole concept of marriage, find out if it's the correct thing to you, and of course to approach it the way that best serves you. All right. So today we're looking at the blind spots of, marriage, and of course what caused it not to work or cause it not to be fulfilling for most people. So as I said, I was talking to a friend the other day, and they said, hey, marriage supposed to have a host of benefits, and there's a lot of reasons as to why, people marry. It was a lot, so I actually had to make notes of them. So I'll just run through those in the meantime. That's not the reason why I'm here today, but it's good point of reference. So they went ahead and say that, marriage, have a couple of reasons as to why people go into them or the benefits. One of them, under the heading of emotional and relationship reasons or relational reasons, you're supposed to get love, companionship, security, commitment, happiness, and they say for men. And of course, some people do it out of desperation as well. They want to find life partners and so forth. Another segment would have been the practical and financial reasons, of course. And that would be legal rights. They want more security. They want convenience and support. Immigration, of course, how that part go. Most people marry to kind of immigrate to another country and seek the benefits elsewhere. They talk about sex as well. They want to be legally accepted to have sex, intercourse, whatever it is, And of course, for family and social reasons, such as having children, social status, cultural and religious beliefs, family and community pressure, all of those things. So they gave me all of those reasons. And I'm like, okay. So yes, it's supposed to give all of these reasons. And I said, do they have to have all of them? And they said, no. So the question is, if there are all these reasons, why are we still having relationships that are so, empty? These marriages that are so unfulfilling, people are not happy in them, people are not comfortable, they regret marrying, all of those things. And of course, a lot of them ending in divorce. When I did the research on the divorce stats, we're looking at about 40 to 50% divorce happening. Of course, in some countries it may be higher, some may be lower. I think back maybe about 7 years ago in Jamaica, it was like 20%, and it's on the increase. And I keep asking, why is it that people are feeling so unfulfilled in their marriages? Why do we have such a big failure rate? And failure rate doesn't necessarily mean divorce rate. So we have a 40 to 50% divorce rate, but failure rate is actually much higher, because you do have those people who stay together in these ineffective marriages. So I would argue that the failure rate is higher than the actual divorce rate that we are seeing. So as I said, we'll be looking at the blind spots today, why those little, reasons that society didn't tell us, or some of the things that happened in the past that have allowed this to happen, where we have these increased divorce rates, and as I said, people feeling unhappy and all of those things. As usual, we are committed to giving you those blind spots, and today is no different. And here we go, we're going to get right into it. So before we get into those blind spots of what causes marriages to fail, we're just going to put in context, what marriage is really about. And I did some research on this, and it kind of go in line with my original presumptions and thoughts on the thing. Marriage is just really a simple institution. It's really just a simple system, a simple technology, where two people should come together with a focus on partnership to either build together, or should I say, to build together and also to raise the next generation. That's really what it comes down to. That's really what marriage, I believe, should be. So that long list of stuff that, the person said, I believe is also a part of the problem as to why we have so many marriages failing. But essentially, the main reason I believe, or should I say, research that marriages are failing is due to the overloading of this system. Now, if you have a simple thing like a bicycle, and you're going to expect it to, act as a submarine for you, you're basically having unrealistic expectations of that bicycle. You're basically overloading the requirements of the bicycle, and it just won't work. And that, I believe, is one of the main things when it comes on to failure in marriage. We want marriages to be more and more. It's supposed to solve all these problems. It's supposed to do all this long list of stuff that this person told me the other day. And I, for one thing, find it very interesting that we are piling so much onto the concept of marriage. So we'll jump right into it. Blind spot number one. One of the reasons why marriages are failing, we are conflating marriage with love. And that's one of the biggest points that I'm raising here. So love is really a feeling. We all know that. And a lot of marriages nowadays is basing their marriages on love. Love is a feeling. We all heard the term, feelings are fleeting. Love requires this intense emotion. It requires novelty. It requires newness and all of that. Marriages requires consistency and routine. When you conflate those two things, they're actually polar opposites. They are not complementary to each other. They are literal polar opposites. So in conflating these two things, it makes it an impossible thing for people to actually abide by or to actually make it work. Imagine you have two competing items trying to bring them together. It's like having magnets of the same pole trying to put them together. They're just repelling apart. And that's what happens, I believe, when you try to conflate love with marriage. So, of course, love is there to ensure that you have that first move, that you're attracted to somebody and all of that. And I don't believe love is that strong to try and sustain things like a mortgage. I don't think love has much to do with the raising of children. And love actually has nothing to do with maintaining systems, standards, and those things. It's a feeling that gets you through the door of marriage. It does not sustain it. Yes, we all hear this thing, love is not enough and all of that. But my concept is, when you're trying to conflate love with marriage, that is the first problem there. So this thing where people are putting love as the foundation of the marriage is one of those blind spots where we're causing a lot of failure where marriage is concerned. The conclusion of this one is really on this. Love should be maybe more the result of marriage rather than the foundation. Love emerges from the marriage rather than be the foundation of the marriage. So, blind spot number 2 has more to do with the current or the modern day institution of marriage rather than the two people or issues surrounding both persons and their expectations and so forth. And it has to do with the isolation of the nuclear family, or should I say, the dissolving of the community or the extended family impacts when it comes on to marriage. This is a topic, or this is a part of the modern day system that people fail to realize that have also contributed to the failure of marriages. So number 1, of course, two people come together. They're supposed to bring their best selves to the marriage. They're also supposed to bring the extended family, their friends, direct family, even their systems and networks together. That was the original intent of marriage. But nowadays we are told, two people should get together, form the nuclear family, and you should go off and be by yourself, negate all the friends, negate all the family. Oh, the mother-in-law doesn't like me, so I don't want to deal with the family. No. What that does is sets up the two people for failure. Because all that help, all that contribution, all that value that others can input into the relationship, things like resources, things like help and support, even information and experiences. They have walked the path. Maybe it's an older aunt that can offer some advice. You understand? You can raise your concerns with a cousin-in-law. You can have discussions with your sister-in-law. You understand? You can go with have a discussion with the friends of your spouse about a matter. You can also use it to also make both people accountable in the marriage. Back in the days, the church, your workplace, a woman could have gone to a man's workplace and be like, hey, Tom is not doing so well at the home. He's not living up to his responsibility. They could go to the church and say, Tom is not doing this. And they would have held the people accountable. But of course, with the isolation of the nuclear family, they're gone off by themselves. They're only a unit by themselves. They are in control of everything. So the impact of the community is lower, lead to low accountability among spouses, and overall lack of support. And of course, putting on the pressure of two people to navigate the whole system that a community should be there to assist with. Yeah, so that's blind spot number 2. And of course, as I say, it surrounds more a systematic issue rather than an issue brought in by both people. As I said, we're looking at the blind spots. It's not only surrounding the two people involved, but looking at the systematic issues that have happened over the past couple of decades that renders marriage to become a failure. All right, so we're going to move on to blind spot number 3. So blind spot number 3, we're looking at the conflation of marriage with religious values. You heard me. I know this one will be a bit controversial. We've all been taught that, hey, marriage is highly religious and you want to marry in the eyes of God and be good and, go to heaven and all of that stuff. Now, I'm not saying anything is wrong with that. It's just what it imposes. And again, we're looking at the blind spots of it. So when you've conflating marriage with religion, there's a couple of things it's doing to the marriage, as I said, that will result in its failure. Number one, generally, when we're looking at religion, it speaks of sexual restrictions and nothing about the individual needs where sex is concerned. So when you're looking at religion, of course, religions generally try to stipulate rules that we live by. So it not only says, hey, you just marry and go off, it sometimes tries to restrict you sexually as well. So if there are particular sexual acts or so forth that, the two people would like to engage in, sometimes the pressures of religion may result in an unfulfilling sexual life. So for instance, you're going to marriages, a lot of people thinking that, we can be having sex and be good and be all righteous in the eyes of the Lord, etc. But guess what? Maybe the other partner is like, yo, I want to do this. And the other one is like, no, I don't want to do that. And, you have all of that conflict here. Next item it does, it puts in a lot of times predetermined or / traditional gender roles. So when you throw religion into it now, you can probably have the woman or the man saying, hey, as a woman or a man, you're supposed to be doing this as per the Bible. You're supposed to be the culture of the woman is supposed to be the culture of the child. She's supposed to wash the dishes. And women say, yo, you're supposed to be the provider. I should not be working. Individuals in marriages come with their own set of requirements or needs, I should say. And a lot of the time, religion may not necessarily be the most effective support of those ideas or those requirements. We're living in a world now where gender roles are, kind of disappearing for the most part. Women are now working and offering their own security. Men are saying, hey, because of how the money is nowadays, you need 2 income in a household. Helpers are now on Google, helpers on Google and YouTube and Instagram are now raising our kids. And I don't like that factor, but that's just how it is nowadays. So with religion, if we try to include it or conflate it with it, it has these impacts. Another one now is lifestyle requirements. Religion sometimes tend to restrict you on lifestyle requirements. I know religion say, hey, follow the law, the land, and so forth, but that's law. But it doesn't speak on preferences. And I've seen relationships where the whole concept or focus on religion more than the partnership has rendered it a failure. Especially when you have, what you call it, unequally yoked people in relationships. I do believe religion is a good thing, but again, it should not be the base of a relationship. It should be something that adds value to the relationship or the marriage as they go along. Essentially, relationships, when you conflate them with religion, it imposes a social control. I won't get down too deep in that. I'm not going to be in too much controversy today. But as you all know, some religions were developed to control the masses and to have that control of our social aspects. Again, including that in the marriage amongst 2 people who have specific needs, requirements, goals, etc., might not be so effective and can result in the failure of the marriages due to unresolvable conflicts. Essentially, as said before, marriages should be partner focused, not focus on all of these external things that we are trying to conflate in the context of marriage. So that's it for blind spot number 3. I hope I've done justice to that one. So the final blind spot for why marriages fail, or should I say what they don't tell you why marriages fail, is, and this has to do with both people as well now, is that society grows up to believe that marriage is this big solution to everything. We're not told, or should I say, we're not cultured to believe that marriage has its limitations. Marriage is not a solution for all of life's problems. It's just another factor in living a rich and full life. So we are grown to think that, the end state of our life should be marriage. We should be marrying somebody, grow old with them, and that's it. That's our final relationship. That is our creme de la creme of goals. It's supposed to solve all the problems. It's supposed to be this system that everything just surrounds it and it's all good and it's all of that. No. Marriage, as with any other institution, it's simple and it has limitations. It's not supposed to solve your partner's trauma from back then. That is what psychiatrists are for. It shouldn't give you more religious fulfillment. You should have that before you come into the marriage. It doesn't guarantee love. As I said, marriage is really based on routine. Love is this whole matter of, as I said, novelty and change and excitement and passion. Most marriages doesn't really require that to work. It may help, but it also has the potential to damage it if you conflate love, as discussed with our first blind spot. But that's the issue. Marriage is really just two people coming together to, solve their, not to solve anything, but just coming together to work, to build together and raise kids. When we look at it outside of that to solve other problems, we're overloading the institution of marriage, hence setting it up for people they just can't achieve these unrealistic expectations. So folks, those are the 4 blind spots that I've noticed. I mean, it's not a overarching there are more reasons than this as to why marriage fail. Again, we're here just to look at those blind spots that nobody talk about. Everybody talk about all the reasons, lack of commitment, lack of communication and all those things. That's not what we're here. We're here to look at those things that people often ignore, don't see, or that the culture has missed out in informing us. So that's the purpose of those 4 blind spots today. Hope I've added some value. But just to give you just a general concept of what's going on here. Essentially, as I said, marriage should be a practical partnership between 2 people towards specific goals. Okay, as I said before, it's not there to solve all of life's problems for any individual that are caught up in the marriage. So, people have been saying, hey, Nevoja, yeah, you're pointing out all these things, but you're not really giving us any practical solutions as to how not to get married. Again, how not to get your marriage to a point of failure or to have a successful marriage. I'll give you guys one today. Again, I'm not a dating, relationship, or marriage coach or expert. I'm just a guy with some solutions or some results that people may desire. Hence why I'm here bringing this stuff to you guys. So for me, I believe, of course, that marriage is a very wonderful institution. Again, I believe it's simple. It's just 2 people growing together or trying to achieve something together. And of course, one of the main objectives of it, not have to be, but also one of the main results of it is also to raise kids or raise the next generation. So essentially, I'll give you one of my weird advice as usual. We've all been given this talk to say, hey, in marriage, you must find the right person. Try and vet and all of that. And yes, it's good advice. But I believe there is something more, a more solid advice to give. One, at the beginning I said, number one, I believe that people should ask the question, just like the guy in that podcast, what problem is there that marriage is the solution to that problem? What problem am I solving by marrying? And if it goes outside of building together with somebody and having kids, I think nothing is wrong with that. But that's the first question. Next thing also is people will say, have clear goals. I'm like, I wouldn't say to have clear goals. I would say have realistic expectations. That surrounds the whole simplicity of marriage. Understanding the limitation, I think, is one of the biggest advice when it comes on to having an effective marriage. Understanding that it is limited to only certain goals that you can achieve, and live and try and work within the framework of that limitation. I said before, it's not a solution to all of life problems. And of course, with the whole overloading of the system of marriage, it causes an institutionalized problem, or a problem with the system. And what I find is that people are associating marriage with poor decision making rather than a wise partnership. And that is one of the biggest issues that we have it today. I think marriage gets a bad name. As I said, I support marriages in terms of I believe that it's a wonderful institution that two people should get involved in. Your boy Navoja don't really step into that line as yet, but that is my viewpoints on it. Another one, or should I say practical advice, I would say don't try and focus. Let me not say focus. I'm saying we should focus on finding the right person, but also we should focus on having the right expectations, the right and realistic expectations. So just twisting up there, I don't usually offer solutions to things. My aim is to bring awareness by exposing these blind spots. And of course, if I added value to you today, remember to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, folks, have a good one. See you on the next episode.